This information series about Tantra is brought to you by Not a Profit Org, the place on the internet to find spiritual guidance powered by artificial intelligence. The Gayatri Mantra. The Gayatri is the most sacred of all Vedic mantras. In it, the Veda lies embodied as in its seed. It runs, Ong bur bhuvasva, tat Savitri veraniam bargo devasya damahi, di hio yo na prachadayat. Ong, let us contemplate the wondrous spirit of the divine creator, Savitri of the earthly, atmospheric, and celestial spheres. May he direct our minds, that is, towards the attainment of dharma. Artha, kama, and moksha, the Gayatit, Vyakarana of Yogi Yajna thus explains the following words, tat, that. The word yat, which is understood, Savita is the possessive case of Savitri, derived from the root su, to bring forth. Savitri is, therefore, the bringer, forth of all that exists. The sun Surya is the cause of all that exists, and of the state in which they exist. Bringing forth and creating all things, it is called Savitri. The Bhavishya Purana says Surya is the visible Devata. He is the eye of the world and the maker of the day. There is no other Devata eternal like unto him. This universe has emanated from, and will be again absorbed into, him. Time is of and in him. The planets Sta, are, Res, the Vasas, Rudras, Vayu, Agni, and the rest are but parts of him. By Bharga is meant the Aditya Devata, dwelling in the region of the sun Surya, and Dala in all his might and glory. He is to the sun what our spirit Atma is to our body. Though he is in the region of the sun in the outer or material sphere, he also dwells in our inner selves. He is the light of the light in the solar circle, and is the light of the lives of all beings. As he is in the outer ether, so also is he in the ethereal region of the heart. In the outer ether he is Surya, and in the inner ether he is the wonderful light, which is the smokeless fire. In short, that being whom the sadhaka realizes in the region of his heart is the Aditya in the heavenly firmament. The two are one. The word is derived in two ways, from the root bridge, to ripen, mature, destroy, reveal, shine. In this derivation, Surya is he who matures and transforms all things. He himself shines and reveals all things by his light. And it is he who at the final dissolution, pralaya, will in his image of destructive fire, Kalagni, destroy all things. From Ba equals dividing all things into different classes, Ra equals color, for he produces the color of all created objects, Ga constantly going and returning. The sun divides all things, produces the different colors of all things, and is constantly going and returning. As the Brahmana, Sarvasva, says, the Bharga is the Atma of all that exists, whether moving or motionless, in the three loka, bhuvasva. There is nothing which exists apart from it. Devasya is the genitive of Deva, agreeing with Savita. Deva is the radiant and playful Lilamaya one. Surya is in constant play with creation, Srishti, existence, Esthiti, and destruction, Pralaya, and by his radiance pleases all. Leela, as applied to the Brahman, is the equivalent of Maya. Varaniyam equals Varaniya, or adorable. He should be meditated upon and adored that we may be relieved of the misery of birth and death. Those who fear rebirth, who desire freedom from death and liberation, and who strive to escape the three kinds of pain tapa, Freya, which are adhyatmika, adhidavika, and adhibatika, meditate upon and adore the Bharga, who, dwelling in the region of the sun, is himself the three regions called Burloka, Bhuvarloka, and Svarloka. Damahi equals Dihaya. Yema, from the root Dihayai, we meditate upon, or let us meditate upon, Prachade, at equals may he direct. The Gayatri does not so expressly state, but it is understood that such direction is along the Chaturvarga, or four-fold path, which is dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, piety, wealth, desire, and its fulfillment and liberation, vide post. The Bharga is ever directing our inner faculties, Bud, Ivritti, along these paths. The above is the Vedika Gayatri, which, according to the Vedic system, none but the twice born may utter. To the Shudra, whether man or woman, and to women of all other castes it is forbidden. The Tantra, which has Gayatri Mantra of its own, shows no such exclusiveness. Chapter Roman 3, verses 109-111 gives the Brahma-Gayatri for worshippers of the Brahman. Paramesh, Varaya Vidmat, Paratatvaya Damahi, Tan no Brahma Prachade, et may we know the Supreme Lord, let us contemplate the Supreme Essence. And may that Brahman direct us, Yantra. This word in its most general sense means an instrument or that by which anything is accomplished. In worship it is that by which the mind is fixed on its object. The Yogini Tantra says that the Devi should be worshipped either in pratima, image, mandala, or yantra. At a certain stage of spiritual progress, the sadhaka is qualified to worship yantra. The siddhi, yogi in inward worship enter puja commences with the worship of yantra, which is the sign sanketa of Brahma. Vijnana, as the mantra, is the sanketa of the devata. It is also said that yantra is so called because it subdues niyantrana, lust, anger, and the other sins of jiva and the sufferings caused thereby. This yantra is a diagram engraved or drawn on metal, paper, or other substances, which is worshipped in the same manner as an image pratima. As different mantra are prescribed for different worships, so are different yantra. The yantras are therefore of various designs, according to the object of worship. The cover of this work shows a silver Gayatri yantra belonging to the author. In the center, triangle are engraved in the middle the words Shri Shri Gayatri Svap, Rasada Sitting Kuru, Shri Shri Gayatri Divi, grant me success, and at each inner corner there are the vijay, H-ring and H-ra. In the spaces formed by the intersections of the outer ovoid circles is the vija, H-ring. The outside circular band contains the vija, tha, which indicates svaha, commonly employed to terminate the feminine mantra or vidya. The 8 lotus petals which spring from the band are inscribed with the vija, H-ring ing H-ra. The outermost band contains all the matrika, or letters of the alphabet, from Ankara to Laksha. The whole is enclosed in the way common to all yantra by a bhupura, by which, as it were, the yantra is enclosed from the outer world. The yantra, when inscribed with mantra, serves, so far as these are concerned, the purpose of a mnemonic chart of the mantra appropriate to the particular devata, whose presence is to be invoked into the yantra. Certain preliminaries precede, as in the case of a pratima, the worship of a yantra. The worshipper first meditates upon the devata, and then arouses him or her in himself. He then communicates the divine presence thus aroused to the yantra. When the devata has by the appropriate mantra been invoked into the yantra, the vital airs prana of the devata are infused therein by the prana-pratishtha ceremony, mantra, and mudra. The devata is thereby installed in the yantra, which is no longer mere gross matter veiling the spirit which has been always there, but instinct with its aroused presence, which the sadhaka first welcomes and then worships. Mantra in itself is devata, and yantra is mantra in that it is the body of the devata, who is mantra. Mudra, the term mudra is derived from the root mud, to please, and in its upasana form is so called because it gives pleasure to the Devas. Divanang moda, da mudra taz, mat tang yatna tashcharit. It is said that there are 108, of which 55 are commonly used. The term means ritual gestures made with the hands in worship or positions of the body in yoga practice. Thus of the first class, the Matsya fish mudra is formed in offering arghya by placing the right hand on the back of the left and extending, fin-like, on each side the 2 thumbs, with the object that the conch which contains water may be regarded as an ocean with aquatic animals, and the yoni mudra which presents that organ as a triangle formed by the thumbs, the 2 first fingers, and the 2 little fingers is shown with the object of invoking the Devi to come and take her place before the worshipper, the yoni being considered to be her pitha or yantra. The upasana mudra is thus nothing but the outward expression of inner resolve which it at the same time intensifies. Mudra are employed in worship, archana japa, dhyana q, v, kamya karma, rites done to affect particular objects, pratishtha q, v, snana bathing, avahana welcoming, naivatya offering of food, and visarjana, or dismissal of the Devata. Some mudra of Hatha Yoga are described subvok, yoga. The Garanda Samhita says that knowledge of the yoga mudras grants all siddhi, and that their performance produces physical benefits such as stability, firmness, and cure of disease. Sandhya, the Tantrika-sandhya is the rite performed by the twice-born castes thrice a day at morning, midday, and evening. The morning Sandhya is preceded by the following acts. On awakening, a mantra is said in invocation of the Murti and the sun, moon, and planets, and salutation is made to the Guru. The Hindu Devi then recites the mantra. I am a Deva. I am indeed the sorrowless Brahman. By nature I am eternally free, and in the form of existence, intelligence, and bliss. He then offers the actions of the day to the deity, confesses his inherent frailty, and prays that he may do right. Then, leaving his bed and touching the earth with his right foot, the Devaya says, Zero Earth, salutation to thee, the Guru of all that is good. After attending to natural calls, the twice-born does Achimana sipping of water with mantra, cleanses his teeth, and takes his early morning bath to the accompaniment of mantra. He then puts on his caste, marked tilaka, and makes tarpanam or oblation of water to the Deva, Rishi, and Pitri. The Sandhya follows, which consists of Achimana sipping of water, Marjana snanam sprinkling of the whole body with water taken with the hand or kasha grass, pranayama regulation of prana, its manifestation in breath, agamarshana expulsion of the person of sin from the body, the prayer to the sun, and then the canon of the Sandhya, the silent recitation, japa, of the Gayatri Mantra, which consists of invocation, avahana of the Gayatri Devi, Rishi, Nyasa, and Shadangan, Ayasa Vide post, meditation on the Devi Gayatri in the morning as Brahmani, at midday as Vaishnavi, and in the evening as Rudrani, japa of the Gayatri, a specified number of times, dismissal Visarjana of the Devi, followed by other mantra. Besides the Brahmanical Vedic Sandhya from which the Shudras are debarred, there is the Tantric-sandhya which may be performed by all. The general outline is similar, the rite is simpler, the mantra vary, and the Tantrika, vijas or seed mantras are employed. Puja, this word, is the common term for worship, of which there are numerous synonyms in the Sanskrit language. Puja is done daily of the Ishtadevata, or the particular deity worshipped by the sadhaka, the Devi in the case of a Shakti, Vishnu in the case of a Vaishnava, and so forth. But though the Ishtadevata is the principal object of worship, yet in Puja all worship the Pancha-devata, or the 5 Deva Aditya, the sun, Ganesha, the Devi, Shiva, and Vishnu, or Narayana. After worship of the Pancha-devata, the family deity, Kuladevata, who is generally the same as the Ishtadevata, is worshipped. Puja, which is kamya, or done to gain a particular end as also vrata, are preceded by the sankalpa, that is, a statement of the resolution to do the worship, as also of the particular object, if any, with which it is done. There are 16 upachara, or things done or used in puja: asana, seat of the image; svagata, welcome; padya, water for washing the feet; arghya, offering of unboiled rice, flowers, sandal paste, durva, grass, etc. To the devata in the kashi vessel; 5 and 6 achimana, water for sipping, which is offered twice; madhuparka, honey, ghee, milk, and curd offered in a silver or brass vessel; snana, water for bathing; vasana, cloth; abharana, jewels; gandha, scent and sandal paste is given; pushpa, flowers; jupa, incense stick; deepa, light; naivedya, food; vandana or namas, kara, prayer. Other articles are used which vary with the puja, such as chalasi leaf in the Vishnu, puju and bale, bilva, leaf in the Shiva puja. The mantras said also vary according to the worship. The seat asana of the worshipper is purified. Salutation being made to the Shakti of support or the sustaining force Adharish Shakti, the water, flowers, etc. are purified. All obstructive spirits are driven away bhuta-pasarpana, and the 10 quarters are fenced from their attack by striking the earth 3 times with the left foot, uttering the astra vija, fat, and by snapping the fingers twice round the head. Pranayama, regulation of breath, is performed, and Vidpost, the elements of the body, are purified bhuta-shuddhi. There is Nyasa Vidpost, dhyana meditation, offering of the upachara, japa Vidpost, prayer and obeisance pranama. In the Ashtam Murti, puja of Shiva the Deva is worshipped under the 8 forms: Sharva earth, Bhava water, Rudra fire, Agra air, Bhima ether, Pashupati Yajamana the sacrificer man, Ishana sun, Mahadeva moon, Yajna. This word, which comes from the root yaj to worship, is commonly translated sacrifice. The Sanskrit word is, however, retained in the translation, since yajna means other things also than those which come within the meaning of the word sacrifice, as understood by an English reader. Thus the 5 great sacrifices, Pancha, Maha, Yajna, which should be performed daily by the Brahmana, are the homa sacrifice, including Vaishva offering, Bhuta, Yajna or Vali, in which offerings are made to Deva, Bhuta, and other spirits and to animals, Pitri, Yajna or Tarpana, oblations to the Pitri, Brahma, Yajna, or study of the Vedas and Manusya Yajna, or entertainment of guests at Ithyasaparya. By these 5 yajna, the worshipper places himself in right relations with all being, affirming such relation between Deva, Pitri, spirits, men, the organic creation, and himself. Homa or Deva Yajna is the making of offerings to fire, which is the carrier thereof to the Deva. A firepit kunda is prepared, and fire, when brought from the house of a Brahmana, is consecrated with mantra. The fire is made conscious with the mantra Vang Vanichaitanya Nama, and then saluted and named. Meditation is then made on the 3 nadis Vid anti-Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna, and on Agni, the Lord of Fire. Offerings are made to the Ishta-devata in the fire. After the puja of fire, salutation is given as in Shadangan, Ayasa, and then clarified butter ghee is poured with a wooden spoon into the fire with mantra, commencing with Om and ending with Svaha. Homa is of various kinds, several of which are referred to in the text, and is performed either daily, as in the case of the ordinary Nityavesh, Eva Homa, or on special occasions, such as the Upanayana, or sacred thread ceremony, marriage, vrata, and the like. It is of various kinds, such as Prayesh, Shita Homa, Srishtikrit Homa, Janu Homa, Dara Homa, and others, some of which will be found in the text. Besides the yajna mentioned there are others. Manu speaks of 4 kinds, Deva, Bhata, where articles and ingredients are employed, as in the case of Homa, Deva, Vali, Enriyajna, and Pitri Yajna. Others are spoken of, such as Japa, Yajna, Dhyana, Yajna, etc. Yajna are also classified according to the dispositions and intentions of the worshipper into Sattvika, Rajasika, and Tamasika Yajna. Vrata is a part of Naimatika, or voluntary karma. It is that which is the cause of virtue punya, and is done to achieve its fruit. Vrata are of various kinds. Some of the chief are Janmashtami on Krishna's birthday, Shivaratri in honor of Shiva, and Shatpanchami, Durvashtami, Tulanavami, and Antachaturdashi performed at specified times in honor of Lakshmi, Narayana, and Ananta. Others may be performed at any time, such as the Savitri Vrata by women only, and the Kartikya Puja by men only. The great Vrata is the celebrated Durga-puja, Mahav, Vrata in honor of the Divi as Durga, which will continue as long as the sun and moon endure, and which, if once commenced, must always be continued. There are numerous other Vrata which have developed to a great extent in Bengal, and for which there is no Shastric authority, such as Madhu, Sankranti, Vrata, Jala, Sankranti, Vrata, and others. While each Vrata has its peculiarities, certain features are common to Vrata of differing kinds. There is both in preparation and performance Sangyama, such as sexual continence, eating of particular food, such as Havashyana, fasting, bathing. No flesh or fish are taken. The mind is concentrated to its purposes, and the vow or resolution, niyama, is taken. Before the Vrata, the sun, planets, and Kuladevata are worshipped, and by the Suryasamoya Makala mantra all Deva and beings are invoked to the side of the worshipper. In the Vedika Vrata, the Sankalpa is made in the morning, and the Vrata is done before midday. Tapas, this term, is generally translated as meaning penance or austerities. It includes these, such as the 4 monthly fast Chatur Masya, the sitting between 5 fires Panchanidhapa, and the like. It has, however, also a wider meaning, and in this wider sense is of three kinds, namely sharira, or bodily, vachika by speech, manasa in mind. The first includes external worship, reverence, and support given to the guru, brahmanas, and the wise prajna, bodily cleanliness, continence, simplicity of life, and avoidance of hurt to any being, ahimsa. The second form includes truth, good, gentle, and affectionate speech, and the study of the Vedas. The third or mental tapas include self-restraint, purity of disposition, silence, tranquility, and silence. Each of these classes has three subdivisions, for tapas may be sattvika, rajasika, or tamasika, according as it is done with faith and without regard to its fruit, or for its fruit, or is done through pride and to gain honor and respect, or lastly, which is done ignorantly, or with a view to injure and destroy others, such as the sadhana of the Tantrika at karma, when performed for a malevolent purpose, upachara. Japa. Japa is defined as vidhena mantroksharanam, or the repeated utterance or recitation of mantra according to certain rules. It is according to the Tantrika of three kinds, vachika or verbal japa, in which the mantra is audibly recited, the 50 matrika being sounded nasally with vindu, upangsha japa, which is superior to the last kind, and in which the tongue and lips are moved, but no sound, or only a slight whisper, is heard, and lastly, the highest form, which is called manasa japa, or mental utterance. In this there is neither sound nor movement of the external organs, but a repetition in the mind which is fixed on the meaning of the mantra. One reason given for the differing values attributed to the several forms is that where there is audible utterance, the mind thinks of the words and the process of correct utterance, and is therefore to a greater, as in the case of vachika japa, or to a less degree, as in the case of upangshu japa, distracted from a fixed attention to the meaning of the mantra. The japa of different kinds have also the relative values attachable to thought and its materialization in sound and word. Certain conditions are prescribed as those under which japa should be done, relating to physical cleanliness, the dressing of the hair and wearing of silk garments, the seat asana, the avoidance of certain conditions of mind and actions, and the nature of the recitation. The japa is useless unless done a specified number of times, of which 108 is esteemed to be excellent. The counting is done either with a mala or rosary mala, japa, or with the thumb of the right hand upon the joints of the fingers of that hand, kara japa. The method of counting in the latter case may differ according to the mantra. Sanskara. There are 10, or in the case of Shudras, 9 purificatory ceremonies, or sacraments, called sanskara, which are done to aid and purify the jiva in the important events of his life. These are jiva-sheka, also called garbhadhanartu sanskara, performed after menstruation with the object of ensuring and sanctifying conception. The garbhadhana ceremony takes place in the daytime on the 5th day, and qualifies for the real garbhadhana at night, that is, the placing of the seed in the womb. It is preceded on the 1st day by the ritu sanskara, which is mentioned in chapter Roman 9 of the text. After conception and during pregnancy, the Pungsavana and Simantanayana rites are performed, the first upon the wife perceiving the signs of conception, and the second during the 4th, 6th, or 8th month of pregnancy. In the antenatal life there are 3 main stages. Whether viewed from the objective physical standpoint, or from the subjective superphysical standpoint, the first period includes on the physical side all the structural and physiological changes which occur in the fertilized ovum from the moment of fertilization until the period when the embryonic body, by the formation of trunk, limbs, and organs, is fit for the entrance of individualized life, or jivatma. When the pranaclear activity and differentiation are completed, the jivatma, whose connection with the pranaclee initiated the pronuclear or formative activity, enters the miniature human form, and the second stage of growth and development begins. The second stage is the fixing of the connection between the jiva and the body, or the rendering of the latter viable. This period includes all the anatomical and physiological modifications by which the embryonic body becomes a viable fetus. With the attainment of viability, the stay of the jiva has been assured, physical life is possible for the child, and the third stage in antenatal life is entered. Thus, on the form side, if the language of comparative embryology is used, the first sanskara denotes the impulse to development from the fertilization of the ovum to the critical period. The second sanskara denotes the impulse to development from the critical period to that of the viability stage of the fetus, and the third sanskara denotes the development from viability to a full term. On the birth of the child, there is the jata karma, performed for the continued life of the newborn child. Then follows the nama karana, or naming ceremony, and nishkramana in the 4th month after delivery, when the child is taken out of doors for the first time and shown the sun, the vivifying source of life, the material embodiment of the divine Savita. Between the 5th and 8th month after birth, the annaprasana ceremony is observed, when rice is put in the child's mouth for the first time. Then follows the chudu karana, or tanjir ceremony, and in the case of the first 3, or twice, born classes upanayana, or investiture with the sacred thread. Herein the jiva is reborn into spiritual life. There is, lastly, advaha, or marriage, whereby the unperfected jiva ensures through offspring that continued human life, which is the condition of its progress and ultimate return to its divine source. These are all described in the 9th chapter of this Tantra. There are also 10 sanskara of the mantra Q, V. The sanskara are intended to be performed at certain stages in the development of the human body, with the view to effect results beneficial to the human organism. Medical science of today seeks to reach the same results, but uses for this purpose the physical methods of modern Western science, suited to an age of materiality, whereas in the sanskara, the superphysical, psychic, or occult, or metaphysical and subjective methods of ancient Eastern science are employed. The sacraments of the Catholic Church and other of its ceremonies, some of which have now fallen into disuse, are Western examples of the same psychic method. Purashcharana. This form of sadhana consists in the repetition, after certain preparations, and under certain conditions of a mantra, a large number of times. The ritual deals with the time and place of performance, the measurements and decoration of the mandapa, or pandal, and of the altar and similar matters. There are certain rules as to food both prior to and during its performance. Sadhaka should eat havishana, or alternately boiled milk, shira, fruits or Indian vegetables, or anything obtained by begging, and avoid all food calculated to influence the passions. Certain conditions and practices are enjoined for the destruction of sin, such as continence, bathing, japa q, v, of the Savitri, mantra 50083008 or 1008 times, the entertainment of brahmamas, and so forth. 3 days before puja there is worship of Ganesha and Kesh, Etrapala, lord of the place. Pancha-devata, or the 5 products of the cow, are eaten. The sun, moon, and Devas are invoked. Then follows the sankalpa. The gata, or kalasa jar, is then placed into which the divi is to be invoked. A mandala, or figure of a particular design, is marked on the ground, and on it the gata is placed. Then the 5 or 9 gems are placed on the kalasa, which is painted with red and covered with leaves. The ritual then prescribes for the tying of the crown lock shika, the posture asana of the sadhaka, japa qv, nyasa qv, and the mantra ritual or process. There is meditation as directed, kaluka is said, and the mantra awakened, mantra chaitanya, and recited the number of times for which the vow has been taken. Bhuta-shuddhi, the object of this ritual, which is described in chapter V, verses 93 et sec, is the purification of the elements of which the body is composed. The mantra, Mahadad, he speaks of it as a rite which is preliminary to the worship of a diva. The process of evolution from the para-Brahman has been described. By this ritual, a mental process of involution takes place whereby the body is in thought resolved into the source from whence it has come. Earth is associated with the sense of smell, water with taste, fire with sight, air with touch, and ether with sound. Kundalini is roused and led to the Svadhisthana chakra. The earth element is dissolved by that of water, as a water is by fire, fire by air, and air by ether. This is absorbed by a higher emanation, and that by a higher, and so on, until the source of all is reached, having dissolved each gross element, mahabhuta, together with the subtle element, tan, matra, from which it proceeds, and the connected organ of sense, indriya, by another. The worshipper absorbs the last element, ether, with the tan, matra, sound, into self, hood, ahankara, the latter into mahat, and that again into prakriti, thus retracing the steps of evolution. Then, in accordance with the monistic teaching of the Vedanta, prakriti is herself thought of as the Brahman, of which she is the energy, and with which, therefore, she is already one. Thinking then of the black Purusha, which is the image of all sin, the body is purified by mantra, accompanied by kumbhaka and ruchaka, and the sadhaka meditates upon the new celestial diva body, which has thus been made and which is then strengthened by a celestial gaze. Nyasa, this word, which comes from root to place, means placing the tips of the fingers and palm of the right hand on various parts of the body, accompanied by particular mantra. The nyasa are of various kinds. Jivan-nyasa follows. Upon bhuta-shuddhi, after the purification of the old and the formation of the celestial body, the sadhaka proceeds by jiva-nyasa to infuse the body with the life of the divi. Placing his hand on his heart, he says the sahang mantra, I am he, thereby identifying himself with the divi. Then, placing the 8 kilakundalini in their several places, he says the following mantra: Ang Kring. Kring Yang Rang Lang Vang Shang Shang Sang Hong Hong Hangsa. The vital airs of the highly blessed and auspicious primordial kalika are here. Ang, etc. The embodied spirit of the highly blessed and auspicious kalika is placed here. Ang, etc. Here are all the senses of the highly auspicious and blessed kalika. And lastly, Ang, etc. May the speech, mind, sight, hearing, smell, and vital airs of the highly blessed and auspicious kalika coming here always abide here in peace and happiness. Svaha. The sadhaka then becomes devata, maya. After having thus dissolved the sinful body, made a new diva body, and infused it with the life of the divi, he proceeds to matrika-nyasa. Mahika are the 50 letters of the Sanskrit alphabet, for as from a mother comes birth, so from matrika or sound the world proceeds. Shabda Brahman, the sound, logos, or a word, is the creator of the worlds of name and of form. The bodies of the devata are composed of the 50 matrika. Sadhaka, therefore, first sets mentally antar matrikan, ayasa in their several places in the 6th chakra, and then externally by physical action, vehi, amatrikan ayasa, the letters of the alphabet which form the different parts of the body of the devata, which is thus built up in the sadhaka himself. He places his hand on different parts of his body, uttering distinctly at the same time appropriate matrika for that part. The mental disposition in the chakra is as follows. In the Yajna lotus, hang kesh, hang each letter in this, and the succeeding cases is said, followed by the mantra. Nama in the Vishuddha lotus, ang, ang, and the rest of the vowels. In the Anahata lotus, kang, kong to thang. In the Manipura lotus, dang di, hang, etc. to fang. In the Svadhisthana lotus, bang, bang, to lang, and lastly in the Muladhara lotus, vang, shang, shang, sang. The external disposition then follows. The vowels in their order with anasvara and visarga are placed on the forehead, face. Right and left eye, right and left ear, right and left nostril, right and left cheek, upper and lower lip, upper and lower teeth, head and hollow of the mouth. The consonants kang to vang are placed on base of right arm and the elbow, wrist, base and tips of fingers, left arm, right and left leg, right and left side, back, navel, belly, heart, right and left shoulder, space between shoulders, kakuta, and then from the heart to the right palm shang is placed, and from the heart to the left palm the second shang, from the heart to the right foot sang, from the heart to the left foot hang, and lastly from the heart to the belly, and from the heart to the mouth ke shang. In each case ong is said at the beginning and nama at the end, according to the Tantra Sara. Matrikan ayasa is also classified into 4 kinds, performed with different aims, viz. Kavala, where the matrika is pronounced without vindu, vindu sanyuta with vindu, sangsarga with visarga, and sabhiya with visarga and vindu. Rishi nyasa then follows for the attainment of the chatur, varga. The assignment of the mantra is to the head, mouth, heart, anus, the 2 feet, and all the body. Generally, the mantra commonly employed are: in the head, salutation to the Rishi revealer Brahma; in the mouth, salutation to the mantra Gayatri; in the heart, salutation to the Divi Mother Sarasvati; in the hidden part, salutation to the Vija, the consonants; salutation to the Shakti, the vowels and the feet; salutation to Visarga, the Kalaka and the whole body. Another form in which the Vija employed is that of the Aya. It is referred to but not given in chap. V. verse 123, and is: in the head, salutation to Brahma and the Brahmarshis; in the mouth, salutation to Gayatri and the other forms of verse; in the heart, salutation to the primordial Devata Kali; in the hidden part, salutation to the Vija Kring; in the 2 feet, salutation to the Shakti Shring; in all the body, salutation to the Kalika Shring. Then follows Angan Ayasa and Karanayasa. These are both forms of Shadangan Ayasa. When Shadangan Ayasa is performed on the body, it is called Hridayati Shadangan Ayasa, and when done with the 5 fingers and palms of the hands only, Angusthati Shadangan Ayasa. The former kind is done as follows: the short vowel A, the consonants of Kavarga group and the long vowel A are recited with Hridaya Nama salutation to the heart. The short vowel I, the consonants of the Chavarga group and the long vowel I are said with Shirasi Svaha to the head. The hard Tavarga consonants set between the 2 vowels you are recited with Shikayai Vashat to the crown lock. Similarly, the soft Tavarga between the vowels E and AI are said with Kavachya Hung. The short vowel O, the Pavarga, and the long vowel O are recited with Netrit, Raya Vashat to the 3 eyes. Lastly, between Vindu and Visarga, the consonants Yedike Shah with Karatalaprish, the Bhyong Astraya fat to the front and back of the palm. The mantras of Shadangan Ayasa on the body are used for Karanayasa, in which they are assigned to the thumbs, the threatening or index fingers, the middle fingers, the 4th, little fingers, and the front and back of the palm. These actions on the body, fingers, and palms also stimulate the nerve centers and nerves therein. In Pithan Ayasa, the Pitha are established in place of the matrika. The Pitha, in their ordinary sense, are Kamarupa and the other places, a list of which is given in the Yogini Hridaya. For the attainment of that state in which the Sadhaka feels that the bhava nature, disposition of the Devata has come upon him, Nyasa is a great auxiliary. It is as it were the wearing of jewels on different parts of the body. The Vija of the Devata are the jewels which the Sadhaka places on the different parts of his body. By Nyasa he places his Abhishta Devata in such parts, and by Vyapakanayasa he spreads its presence throughout himself. He becomes permeated by it, losing himself in the divine self. Nyasa is also of use in effecting proper distribution of the Shaktis of the human frame in their proper positions, so as to avoid the production of discord and distraction in worship. Nyasa as well as asana are necessary for production of the desired state of mind and of chitta shud, its purification. Das denken ist der mas der Dinge. Transformation of thought is transformation of being. This is the essential principle and rational basis of all this and similar tantric sadhana. Pancha-tattva. There are, as already stated, 3 classes of men: Pashu, Vira, and Divya. The operation of the guna which produce these types affect, on the gross material plane, the animal tendencies, manifesting in the 3 chief physical functions: eating and drinking, whereby the animaya kosha is maintained, and sexual intercourse, by which it is reproduced. These functions are the subject of the Pancha-tattva or Panchamakara 5 M's, as they are vulgarly called, viz. Madhya wine, Mangsa meat, Matsya fish, Mudra parched grain, and Methuna koishan. In ordinary parlance, Mudra means ritual gestures or positions of the body in worship and hatha yoga, but as one of the 5 elements it is parched cereal, and is defined as Brishtadan Yadakang Yadiyad Chevyaniyam Prachakshat, Sa Mudra Kathita Divi Sarvashang Naganam Dini. The Tantras speak of the 5 elements as Panchatattva, Kuladravya, Kulatattva, and certain of the elements have esoteric names, such as Karanavari or Tirthavari, for wine, the 5th element being usually called Lodasad, Hana, Sadhana with woman, or Shakti. The 5 elements, moreover, have various meanings according as they form part of the Tamasika Pashvachara, Rajasika Virachara, or Divya or Sattvika Sadhanas respectively. All the elements or their substitutes are purified and consecrated, and then with the appropriate ritual, the first 4 are consumed, such consumption being followed by Ladasadhana or its symbolic equivalent. The Tantra prohibits indiscriminate use of the elements, which may be consumed or employed only after purification, sho, dana, and during worship according to the Tantric ritual. Then also, all excess is forbidden. Shyamrahasya says that intemperance leads to hell, and this Tantra condemns it in Chapter V. A well-known saying in Tantra describes the true hero Vira to be, not he who is of great physical strength and prowess, the great eater and drinker, or man of powerful sexual energy, but he who has controlled his senses, is a truth seeker, ever engaged in worship, and who has sacrificed lust and all other passions, Jaitendriya sativadi nityanasthana tatparakamati, validanashcha sa vira edg8. The elements in their literal sense are not available in sadhana for all. The nature of pashu requires strict adherence to Vedic rule in the matter of these physical functions, even in worship. This rule prohibits the drinking of wine, a substance subject to the 3 curses of Brahma, Kacha, and Krishna in the following terms: Madhyamapyamadyamagrahiyam, wine must not be drunk, given, or taken. The drinking of wine in ordinary life for satisfaction of the sensual appetite is, in fact, a sin involving prayaskita and entailing, according to the Vishnu Purana, punishment in the same hell as that to which a killer of a brahmana goes. As regards flesh and fish, the higher castes outside Bengal, who submit to the orthodox smart discipline, eat neither, nor do high and strict brahmanas even in that province. But the bulk of the people there, both men and women, eat fish, and men consume the flesh of male goats which have been previously offered to the deity. The Vedic dharma is equally strict upon the subject of sexual intercourse. Mithuna other than with the householder's own wife is condemned, and this is not only in its literal sense, but in that of which is known as Ashtanga 8-fold Mithuna, viz. Smaranam, thinking upon it; Kirtanam, talking of it; Kelly, play with women; Prikshanam, looking upon women; Gahyapashanan, talk in private with women; Sankalpa, wish or resolve for Mathua; Adhyavasaya, determination towards it; Kriyanish, pati, actual accomplishment of the sexual act. In short, the pashu, and except for ritual purposes those who are not pashu, should, in the words of the Shaktakramya, avoid Maithuna. Conversation on the subject, and assemblies of women, Maithanam tatkathelapang tadgoshthing parivarjayat. Even in the case of the householder's own wife, marital continency is enjoined. The divinity in woman, which the Tantra in particular proclaims, is also recognized in the ordinary Vedic teaching, as must obviously be the case given the common foundation upon which all the Shastra rest. Woman is not to be regarded merely as an object of enjoyment, but as a house, goddess grihedvata. According to the sublime notions of Shruti, the union of man and wife is a veritable sacrificial rite, a sacrifice in fire, homa, wherein she is both hearth kunda and flame, and he who knows this as homa attains liberation. Similarly, the Tantrika mantra for the Shiva-Shakti yoga runs: this is the internal homa in which, by the path of Sushamna, sacrifice is made of the functions of sense to the spirit, as fire kindled with the ghee of merit, and demerit taken from the mind as the geep. Svaha. It is not only thus that wife and husband are associated, for the Vedic dharma, in this now neglected, prescribes that the householder should worship in company with his wife. Brahmacharya, or continency, is not, as is sometimes supposed, a requisite of the student ashrama only, but is a rule which governs the married householder grihastha also. According to Vedic injunctions, union of man and wife must take place once a month on the 5th day after the cessation of the menses, and then only. Hence it is that the Nitya Tantra, when giving the characteristic of a pashu, says that he is one who avoids sexual union except on the 5th day, Ritukalangvena divi rama, nang parivarjayat. In other words, the pashu is he who in this case, as in other matters, follows for all purposes, ritual or otherwise, the Vedic injunctions which govern the ordinary life of all. The above-mentioned rules govern the life of all men. The only exception which the Tantra makes is for purpose of sadhana in the case of those who are competent adhikari for virachara. It is held, indeed, that the exception is not strictly an exception to Vedic teaching at all, and that it is an error to suppose that the Tantrika Rahasya Puja is opposed to the Vedas. Thus, whilst the Vedic rule prohibits the use of wine in ordinary life, and for purpose of mere sensual gratification it prescribes the religious yajna with wine, this ritual use the Tantra also allows, provided that the sadhaka is competent for the sadhana, in which its consumption is part of its ritual and method. The Tantra enforces the Vedic rule in all cases, ritual or otherwise, for those who are governed by the Vedikachara. The Nitya Tantra says, they pashu should never worship Divi during the latter part of the day, in the evening or at night. Ratrau naiva yage, deving sandiayang vaparanhake. For all such worship connotes Mithuna prohibited to the Pashu. In lieu of it, varying substitutes are prescribed, such as either an offering of flowers with the hands formed into the Kachchapa Mudra, or union with the worshipper's own wife. In the same way, in lieu of wine. The Pashu should, if a Brahmana, take milk, if a Kshatriya ghee, if a Vaishya honey, and if a Shudra a liquor made from rice. Salt, ginger, sesamum, wheat, mashkalai beans, and garlic are various substitutes for meat, and the white brinjal vegetable, red radish, masur, a kind of gram, red sesamum, and panafala, an aquatic plant, take the place of fish. Paddy, rice, wheat, and gram geniali are mudra. The vira, or rather he who is qualified, adhikari for virachara, since the true vira is its finished product, commences sadhana with the rajasika pancha-tattva first stated, which are employed for the destruction of the sensual tendencies which they connote. For the worship of Shakti, the Pancha-tattva are declared to be essential. This Tantra declares that such worship without their use is but the practice of evil magic. Upon this passage, the commentator Jaganmohana Tarkalankara observes as follows: "Let us consider what most contributes to the fall of a man, making him forget his duty, sink into sin, and die an early death. First among these are wine and women, fish, meat, and mudra, and accessories. By these things men have lost their manhood. Shiva then desires to employ these very poisons in order to eradicate the poison in the human system. Poison is the antidote for poison. This is the right treatment for those who long for drink or lust for women. The physician must, however, be an experienced one. If there be a mistake as to the application, the patient is like to die." Shiva has said that the way of kilachara is as difficult as it is to walk on the edge of a sword, or to hold a wild tiger. There is a secret argument in favor of the Pancha-tattva, and those tattva so understood should be followed by all. None, however, but the initiate can grasp this argument, and therefore Shiva has directed that it should not be revealed before anybody and everybody. An initiate, when he sees a woman, will worship her as his own mother or goddess Ishtadvata, and bow before her. The Vishnu Purana says that by feeding your desires you cannot satisfy them. It is like pouring ghee on fire. Though this is true, an experienced spiritual teacher, guru, will know how, by the application of this poisonous medicine, to kill the poison of samsara. Shiva has, however, prohibited the indiscriminate publication of this. The meaning of this passage would therefore appear to be this: the object of Tantrika worship is Brahma-sayojya, or union with Brahman. If that is not attained, nothing is attained, and with men's propensities as they are, this can only be attained through the special treatment prescribed by the Tantras. If this is not followed, then the sensual propensities are not eradicated, and the work is for the desired end of Tantra as useless as magic, which, worked by such a man, leads only to the injury of others. The other secret argument here referred to is that by which it is shown that the particular may be raised to the universal life by the vehicle of those same passions, which, when flowing only in outward and downward current, are the most powerful bonds to bind him to the former. The passage cited refers to the necessity for the spiritual direction of the guru. To the want of such is accredited the abuses of the system. When the patient Sishya and the disease are working together, there is poor hope for the former, but when the patient, the disease, and the physician guru are on one, and at the wrong side, then nothing can save him from a descent on that downward path, which it is the object of the sadhana to prevent. Verse 67 in chapter I of this Tantra is here in point. Owing, however, to abuses, particularly as regards the tattva of Medya and Mithuna, this Tantra, according to the current version, prescribes in certain cases limitations as regards their use. It prescribes that when the Kali Yuga is in full strength, and in the case of householders, grihastha, whose minds are engrossed with worldly affairs, the three sweets, madhuratraya, are to be substituted for wine. Those who are of virtuous temperament, and whose minds are turned towards the Brahman, are permitted to take 5 cups of wine. So also as regards Mithuna, This Tantra states that men in this Kali age are by their nature weak and disturbed by lust, and by reason of this do not recognize woman Shakti to be the image of deity. It accordingly ordains that when the Kali Yuga is in full sway, the fifth tattva shall only be accomplished with Asviya Shakti, or the worshipper's own wife, and that union with a woman who is not married to the sadhaka in either Brahma or Shiva form is forbidden. In the case of other Shakti, Parakya, and Sadharani, it prescribes in lieu of Maithuna, meditation by the worshipper upon the lotus feet of the Divi, together with japa of his Ishtamantra. This rule, however, the commentator says, is not of universal application. Shiva has in this Tantra prohibited sadhana with the last tattva, with Parakya, and Sadharani Shakti, in the case of men of ordinary weak intellect ruled by lust, but for those who have by sadhana conquered their passions and attained the state of a true vira, or siddha, there is no prohibition as to the mode of lata sadhana. This Tantra appears to be, in fact, a protest against the misuse of the tattva, which had followed upon a relaxation of the original rules and conditions governing them. Without the Pancha-tattva in one form or another, the Shakti-puja cannot be performed. The Mother of the Universe must be worshipped with these elements. By their use the universe, Jagat Brahmanda itself, is used as the article of worship. Wine signifies the power Shakti, which produces all fiery elements, meat and fish all terrestrial and aquatic animals, Mudra all vegetable life, and Maithuna the will action kriya, and knowledge Jnana Shakti of the supreme Prakriti, productive of that great pleasure which accompanies the process of creation. To the mother is thus offered the restless life of her universe. The object of all sadhana is the stimulation of the sattva guna. When by such sadhana this guna largely preponderates, the sattvika sadhana suitable for men of a high type of divya bhava is adopted. In this latter sadhana the names of the Pancha-tattva are used symbolically for operations of a purely mental and spiritual character. Thus, the Kaivalya says that wine is that intoxicating knowledge acquired by yoga of the Parabrahman, which renders the worshipper senseless as regards the external world. Meat mangsa is not any fleshly thing, but the act whereby the sadhaka consigns all his acts to me, ma'am. Matsya fish is that sattvika knowledge by which through the sense of mindness the worshipper sympathizes with the pleasure and pain of all beings. Mudra is the act of relinquishing all association with evil, which results in bondage, and Maithuna is the union of the Shakti Kundalini with Shiva in the body of the worshipper. This, the Yogini Tantra says, is the best of all unions for those who have already rolled their passions yati. According to the Agamasara, wine is the samadhara, or lunar ambrosia, which drops from the Brahmarandra. Mangsa meat is the tongue ma, of which its part anksha is speech. The sadhaka in eating it controls his speech. Matsya fish are those two which are constantly moving in the two rivers Ida and Pingala. He who controls his breath by pranayama q, eats them by kumbhaka. Mudra is the awakening of knowledge in the pericarp of the great Sahasrara lotus, where the Atma, like Mercury, resplendent as 10 million suns, and deliciously cool as 10 million moons, is united with the Divi Kundalini. The esoteric meaning of Maithuna is thus stated by the Agama. The ruddy, hued letter Ra is in the Kunda, and the letter Ma, in the shape of Vindu, is in the Mahayoni. When Makara M, seated on the Hangsa in the form of Akara A, unites with Rakara R, then the Brahmajnana, which is the source of supreme bliss, is gained by the Sadhaka, who is then called Atmarama, for his enjoyment is in the Atma, in the Sahasrara. This is the union on the purely Sattvika plane, which corresponds on the Rajasika plane to the union of Shiva and Shakti in the persons of their worshippers. The union of Shiva and Shakti is described as a true yoga, from which, as the Yamala says, arises that joy which is known as the supreme bliss.